Going live. Where's there's the camera. Can everyone hear me? I hope this is okay. I've just been doing some recording for the next video, and I got 18 minutes in to the finale of the video, which was a separate video file to some of the rest of the video, and I realized I hadn't hit record. It's always the greatest thing ever when that happens. Funnily enough, though, it was a video all about family. You may remember last week that was our content area, our topic for last week's stream. And so I've turned that into a video now to answer some of those questions in a more broad manner. This week's question, or this week's topic, can't speak. Always happens that is words. You may know from watching my videos that I'm quite fascinated with words, and you have to be, I think, when you've lived in Britain and America, just to navigate some of the differences. And you all, well, some of you sent in questions throughout the week, which I'll be getting to here in a bit to answer. Excuse me, but welcome to this Friday live stream, the most recent stream. It's working well so far, this for me, and I must say that it's sort of nice going from doing the work to then taking a break from it and then coming to the live stream. After this live stream, I'm going to have to go back and redo that 18 minutes that didn't work out. So that's how today's going to finish up. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about what I assume are their dinners, so that's making me hungry. So thanks for that. Might have Indian tonight. Don't know. We'll see. But what do people think about words, specifically, British versus American words, or American slang, or British slang, or spellings, or pronunciation, things of that nature? Feel free. I tell you, it goes after so many hours of working, doesn't it? The ability to speak, which is not good for somebody whose job it is to do that very thing. Let's see. How much do Brits enjoy puns? Asks Elisa. A lot. We love puns. I mean, some people will hate them. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan. Puns are they're more or less my life. They give me life. The puns first, and then it's the sun second in terms of energy. Puns give me more, and they rhyme. Pun and sun. There's probably a pun somewhere in that, I would imagine. Diana says bollocks is confusing. Bollocks is bad, but the dog's bollocks is great. I know, it's weird, isn't it? I think there's something similar here where somebody might say, I'm going to refer to it as the S word. Somebody might say that something is the S word, meaning it's bad, but they might also say it's the S word, meaning it's good. And you can turn it on its head. So I think that kind of thing happens in both countries. It's really the connotation that comes with the word can change depending on how you utilize it. So let's see. John asks, Lawrence, when I asked about your family visiting you, it made me sad to hear about your father. I hope you get a chance to go to England to visit him soon. Thank you, John. Yeah, same here. Yeah. It's been 2 years since I've been able, 3 years now since I've been able to do that. So I do hope to eventually get back. But he's, the thing is, he's in good spirits most of the time. I mean, I think that's something that runs in my family. And so I do sort of, take comfort in that for sure. Jill had a ton of questions and then forgot them when I asked. That's always the way, isn't it? Like, same with me. If I have to think of a witty response there at the moment that somebody is, coming at me with some kind of vitriol, I usually don't remember it until an hour later. Not that this is the exact same thing as that, but that's what came to mind. Donna, what about words was the most confusing when you came here? I think it's words that describe things that I've never heard of. One of those, and I was using this as an example today on the video, actually, just because American families, I think, are more into their kids' extracurricular school activities. Is a big event that families will go to, and one of those events that I was taken to was Color Guard. My wife's sister was in Color Guard. and I had no idea what it was. Like I just never heard of it. We don't really. It's not something that we do in Britain, or at least if we do, it's not a major thing that then could end up at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Um, and so it was when I was doing that, because you had to learn not only a new phrase, but an entirely new concept as well in that thing. And it was to such an extent that I'd not even thought of this term in about 10 years. Right. This was when I last saw this, saw Color Guard in action. And so earlier today, I spent about half an hour trying to remember the name of it. I even went to Google and I was typing in throw, stick, catch, flag, thing. I couldn't think how to search for this in Google, and it took ages. And eventually, I just looked at a list of American extracurricular activities, and I saw it, color guard. The other thing with color guard, of course, is that color is spelled differently to how we spell it in Britain. So I suppose it's a triple threat, that particular one, when it comes to these things. Sean says, Color Guard is amazing, especially with the marching band. It is. It's all amazing to me. I mean, the fact that people get so skilled at these things, not just Color Guard, but the marching bands themselves, right? This is something outside of the realm of what I would expect of students at the high school level or any level in Britain, really. These things blow my mind. Let's see. Jeff says, a puzzle for you to solve. What's the connection between the color pink and pinking shears? I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of, clever word outcome there, but I don't know what it is. So you're going to have to let me know. Elisa says, Lawrence, if you go to Indianapolis in early to mid-August, you can see Color Guards, Drum Corps as part of DCI finals. I probably did. I'm guessing I probably have seen that. I saw a lot of it when I first moved here. It was strange. And Tara's brother was in band, and Tara was in band too, but this was before I was in her life. But her brother did it, and I was taken to all of that stuff too. It was an eye opener. Yeah, people doing drumline, drum corps, whatever it's called. It's sort of an alien concept to us in Britain. Especially that so many people would do it. So many students would sign up to do it and do it really well. Like in my experience, I see it, and it looks so professional. And just, how are you doing this on top of studying for school and having free time and things like that? It's amazing. It's amazing how the outcome, to be honest. Donna asks, what did you think of cheerleaders? Well, the concept of cheerleading is something that we have in Britain, because it will take place at certain sports events every now and again, but it's nothing on the level of its prominence in the US. I see it far more here. I love, by the way, that this conversation has sort of shifted a little bit from words and into kind of activities. But of course, we need the words to describe those activities. But we were very aware of both the concept of cheerleading and the word cheerleader in Britain. We're just also aware that America is the country that I think does this practice more than any other country on earth. You'll see it at sports events here all the time. Okay, so Jeff has the answer. The original meaning of pink is serrated. So flowers in the genus Dianthus, this is getting nice and technical, I like this, are commonly called pinks because they have serrated edges. The flowers are usually pink in color. Well, there you go. That's good. I'll have to remember that one. And let's see. Do we have any more comments about words or even, high school activities? I played, Angelin says, I played the sousaphone in my high school band. I always referred to it as playing in a corkscrew. There we go. Don't the Scots do pipe and drum, or am I misremembering? Asked DJK. They may do. It was certainly not something that I grew up with, of course, being south of the border. And of course, it is a big part, I think, of like Scottish culture anyway. So yes, that could be the case. And in fact, Tara and her siblings all went to a school called Highland High School. This is in Anderson, and their marching band wear kilts, and they actually do the kind of some of the Scottish stuff. So there is certainly that, but maybe when I'm talking about Britain, I'm really referring to England, where I grew up. It was quite a departure from what I saw in the US for sure. So that would be those kind of words were the ones that stumped me the most, because in a lot of cases with American English words, I've heard them before in films and things like that. So I have an inclination as to what's going on, and I can, generally understand the gist. But with that, when somebody said, my wife said, "Do you want to go see my sister's color guard troop?" I just smiled and nodded. Yeah, all right, that'd be good. What is that? No idea what that is. And then I saw it, and like I said, I was pretty amazed by it. Yeah, so words. I've been playing Wordle, and I suspect there's one or two comments about Wordle on here. I see the New York Times has acquired it, so you're going to have to pay soon, which makes me mad, because it's just a nice. And I don't know if people are on social media and if you're getting annoyed by people posting their Wordle results, but for me, it's one of those kind of harmless games, because you play it for 2 to 5 minutes in the morning, and then that's it. You're done, because you get one a day, and everybody around the world gets the same one, and I've really enjoyed it. And so far, I'm undefeated. Yeah, I'm still going. How many? I'm at. I don't know. I've had something like 12 games, and I'm still going strong. But has anyone else had a chance to play it? How are people doing on it? What other word games are people into? There's obviously Scrabble. Scrabble is my favorite board game ever. And I think I said this a few weeks ago. Whenever I play Scrabble with people here in the US, I'm always sure to include British spellings. Just get extra points, in a lot of the cases. Diana says, I play on Duolingo, if that counts. I think it does. I mean, it's language based, isn't it? And Tara does Duolingo too. She's learning French, has been for a couple of years now, and every day is doing it. It's a really, really good thing. Wordscape is another one, says DJK. This would be interesting to check out. Elisa says, I admit I've never played Wordle. I'm okay with that. Oh, well, fair enough. I thought that way. I was like, here we go. Here's one of those things everyone's talking about. But as soon as I played it, I fully understood the popularity of this thing, and was very amazed to learn that it's not an app. You go to a website and you play it on a website rather than on an app. It's very 2004 in that regard, and I kind of like it. I miss those days. It was a simple time, and I was at university in 2004 studying linguistics, so this would have been a perfect game to play at that time. Angolan says, I have a Canadian friend who plays both English and French Wordle. Wow. I didn't know it had sort of expanded into multiple languages, so that's good to hear. Great. Okay. Crosswords, says Kathy. I love crosswords. I've always loved them, if I've got the time for them, because sometimes they can be quite, tricky, I think, can't they? But it's very satisfying when you complete one of those super cryptic ones. I like that. There's a good. Now, for those of you that do play Wordle, Angolan brings up a good one here. My system, says Angolan, is always start Wordle with the word adieu. And I assume that's because you get a lot of the vowels used up in that first go. It's very useful to do that, because then you know which vowels are going to be in the word or not in the word. And that's the great thing about Wordle. It just sort of cancels out or what am I looking for? Or confirms the letters, and you keep building from there. Very good. Amy says, hello all, happy Friday, late to the party. Hey, better late than never. Sometimes I'm late to the party and everyone's hanging. So welcome, Amy, and welcome to anyone who's made it today for the first time or has just joined. And usually what happens, just to explain, is that I put out a topic earlier in the week or the day before in this case, and you can send in your questions and I'll answer them, which I'll be doing here shortly as well. This week, it is about words. We are talking about words. And specifically, we've covered today the fact or the types of words that can be problematic, I think, for British people moving here. Some of the other things, of course, and I've talked about this pretty extensively on my channel, are spelling differences. Those can be quite monumental with some of them. And I think growing up as a Brit, we learn some of the big ones, some of the famous differences, like color, like theater, like whatever, some really kind of obvious ones. But then when you move here, you realize there's actually a lot of spelling differences you weren't even aware of until you start using words here. Trying to think one for me, and it's not just a spelling difference, I suppose. It's almost a different word. It's a pronunciation difference, and that's realty. Is the word? No, not realty. No, what am I thinking of? Realty is obviously to do with real estate. What's the word? Well, there's normality versus normalcy, but there's another one. What am I thinking of? It's just left me. My brain. Come on, you can do it. Somebody post this. It's got to happen. Well, there is realization. That's true, Amy. That or realize, I suppose, and words that end with Z or IZE and ISE. But there's one where it sort of bucks the trends, of normal spelling differences, and it's just escaped me. It's not realtor, although we do have another word for realtor. Why is this happening? This is silly. I don't remember where it's gone. Ah, well, I'll have to come back to it. This is silly, but there are some words where it was unexpected. Sean Lawrence, how do you pronounce? It was an old archaic way of spelling jail, wasn't it? GAOL. But I wouldn't. Most British people are never going to write it that way. We mostly spell it JAIL. And then I think I saw. No, I didn't see. No, I didn't. Yes, it'll come to me when I'm not thinking about it. It's like we said earlier. I think of things after the fact, and it's no good to me then, is it? When I'm in a room all by myself and I remind myself, this is the word you meant. Your patrons aren't here right now. I could text you all, message you all, whatever it's called. But it's not the same thing, is it? Pantomime, asks Jill. Does it mean like a play? So a pantomime is sort of like a play, but it's kind of a very melodramatic, just sort of slapstick type play that's usually something that happens at Christmas, and it follows similar conventions from year to year. You'll have a character behind another character, and the character in front goes, "Where is he?" And the audience go, "He's behind you." It's hilarious, the first time, and then after seeing it multiple times, you yearn for dramatic theatre, or I did after a while. Jameis, English borrows so many words from other languages that it's nearly impossible to get them right. Yes, I mean, that's it. Well, pantomime itself, I think, came from French, so that would there's another example. Dietas, Wordle has taught me some words that I have never heard of before. I think that's the good thing about it, isn't it? It's a lot of the time I'll get sort of 3 or 4 letters and I'll go, oh, I know what this is. I know what this is, but I don't know what that word means. I've just seen it written down before, so I'll go with that. And so far, I'm doing fine. Yeah. Where are we at? We're at 22 minutes past the hour. That's what's happening here. Elisa thinks I should tell Kafka when I think about this spelling difference. I think maybe that is a good idea. What is it? Why can't I think of it? Why am I going high pitched? Sorry if that hurts your ears or wakes your dog up and thinks I'm talking to them specifically. I don't remember. Something. It was something, obviously. I don't remember what it is. Hang on, just give me a sec. Give me a sec. I know we don't like dead air, but I also don't like dead words. No, that's archaic words, isn't it? It's a different thing. I just need to be on my own for a second and think about this. Is that okay? All right, let's think about this. What is it? Why? Why is it left? Why is it left my brain at the very moment that I need it? Sorry, the microphone's there and I'm facing this way, so it's probably not coming through very well. I don't remember. This is so annoying. It's so annoying. I bet Kafka does think English spelling is absurd because he's a Russian blue, so he writes in a completely different language anyway. When it's funny with my cat, this is a side comment, by the way, but I have this thought that when humans are out of the house, our cats or dogs just get up and they start doing stuff like playing the piano if you have a piano, or they think about doing the dishes and then ultimately don't because they're evil. But I think they can do these sort of human activities but choose not to in front of us because we'd use them for those purposes and they know it. It's just the way my brain works about things, but that's just it. Okay, so Elisa says, "Why am I laughing?" And I don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew. I don't always know these things. Okay, Donna says, "Is what you're trying to remember have something to do with realty?" It might actually, because the word realty was an odd thing at first, because I thought that was Americans misspelling reality. When I first saw it, I saw it on a sign, a billboard of some kind. Josh's Realty. I can't imagine it being called that, but it could be. And I saw the word and it just looked wrong. It looked weird. I was like, what does that? Why have they missed out the I? Where's that gone? It was an odd one. But it was something like normalcy versus normality, but it's not quite that. And I can't remember exactly what it is. And now I'm just gonna, like do this with my teeth until I stop being angry. Not that angry, but I'm getting there. Great. So where are we? I am in my studio. Where are you? That's you. That's all of you, not just one of. I mean, you can take that as me individually just talking to you. If that would make this weirder, it's all getting weird, isn't it? Sorry, but this is what happens when your vocabulary shrinks. You can't think of words, and sentences just become an abstract mess. That's what's happening here. Right. Okay. So there are so many jokes, says Elisa, about Americans misspelling reality. I can see, it'd be a good punchline. Oh, people are answering. This is great. New Orleans, Louisiana. Actually, this is great. I like this. I mean, I sort of vaguely know where some of you live just based on, what you've said in the past. But it's always good to just get a refresher. Kimberly lives somewhere in the state of denial. That's anagram of Denali, isn't it? Nearly. So I'm just thinking again about words and how that works. Dallas, Texas, says Kay. We've got El Cerrito, California, says Jeff. This is fun. This is a nice recap. It's the new year, we've got new patrons. So it's good to just sort of vaguely understand where you're all typing from. Otherwise known as Colorado, I see. And Plymouth, Indiana, says Sean. I've been through Plymouth. I've driven through the sort of center of it, I think, a while back, many years ago. I was interested because of the Plymouth in England, and obviously Plymouth Rock here in the US. And it's very different from Plymouth, England. That's all I know. But I didn't get out of the car. Minneapolis is in the house by way of Jameis. And there we go. England says, my chat name is England with the vowels reversed. That's like a lot of English people when they speak, so that works. That works really well. Okay. So what do we got here? Speaking of puns, MN Dot revealed its new batch of named snowplows, and they're all puns. That's amazing. So MN Dot, that's the maker of, specifically a maker of snowplows, is it? I don't see. I'm not up on my snowplow manufacturers. I really need to learn a bit more about these things, so I appreciate that. Cool. Some of the names include Betty Whiteout. That is good. Although might be mildly inappropriate right now. We'll wait a bit. It's too soon. And then I really like this one. Control Salt Delete. That's inspired, actually. Minnesota Department of Transportation, of course. Thank you, Diana. There are just so many acronyms, aren't there, out there? I suppose that's more of an initialism, unless you pronounce it dot, kind of like bop by Hanson. Well, that ages me. Okay, and then right, so that's good. Minnesota Department of Transportation. Well, that's even better then, because this doesn't sound like something the government would do, or a government agency, or a local government would do. So I'm actually quite pleased with that. Plowy McPlowface debuted last year. We're going to run out of those, aren't we? Boaty McBoatface, Trucky McTruckface. I've got a feeling the more I say these, the more I'll encounter rude ones by accident. So I've got to be careful of what I say. But it's still funny to me that they do that. So switching gears, as they say here in America, I'm going to go now and pull up your questions. You may have already asked them on this live stream, but I think that's fine. I can go through them again. Jay has a question. Why do Brits speak a different language? Ooh, well, it's controversial. But is it? I mean, I don't know. I think we obviously speak a variation of the same language, but it's so varied that it could almost be considered a language of its own, both in Britain and the one we use here, or the ones we use here, and the ones we use in Britain. Different forms of British English, different forms of American English. They're all different file folders with many subfolders. But yeah, I mean, why do they speak a different language? Obviously, Jay is being jovial, but obviously English itself, as we've said on this live stream, comes from multiple other languages. And so to say, why do we speak a different language, might be better to ask, why do we speak different languages, and how did that all come about historically and evolve into what we know today as the very complicated English language? And it's something that, I'm often mulling over and reading into. Okay, so Jeff has a great question. What are some of your favorite etymologies? I'm a massive fan of etymologies. For those of you not familiar with the term, it's just the origin of words. Where did the word come from? And with a lot of these, they can be traced back to very specific things. And with others, there's quite a vague origin to words because they're so old, and we're talking 1,000 years old or more. But I don't know my favorite. I suppose my favorite etymologies are those ones where it's sort of surprising, and maybe there's a British American context to those etymologies. For instance, I mean, we've talked before about the origin of the word soccer, a word that Americans get unfairly criticized for using by British people because it's not soccer, it's football. And I think we've pointed out it was the British who came up with the word soccer in the late 19th century at Oxford University. But there are other examples of this happening, many examples of this happening. The word gas, we would say petrol most of the time in the UK, but we came up with gasoline as well. And even aluminum was coined by a British scientist and then made its way over here, and we switched to aluminium. So I think etymologies like that, where there's kind of a multi-layered story to it, and there's one where we have primary sources from the time that kind of prove the birth of this word. We actually have the details of it. I love that stuff. I love homing in on the actual evidence as to where it came about. Excuse me. Linda says, I love Wordle, but saw that the New York Times bought it. So, yeah, I mean, and they said that, current users can play for free initially. So it's not going to stay that way. And I think it's sad because everybody was having their moment, weren't they? But all good things come to an end, I suppose. Okay, but Linda also says, I'm not sure what else you are asking about words. Words we want to know how they derive from. Cool words. I guess I don't really have any that come to mind unless supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I really like long words or I'm fascinated by their use because often they're used for the very reason that they're long, on purpose in order to win an award or to win a world record. There's like that one in Massachusetts, the lake, whose name is very hard to remember. Same with the place in Wales and all these other things. So long words are fun, short ones as well, like the shortest names. There's a place name, I think it's in Kentucky, that's 2 letters long. Can't remember what it is. Ironically, you'd think that would be easier to remember than supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but it isn't. Blackie B says favorite song lyrics, and I appreciated your Radiohead recitation in the bathtub. Oh, did I do that? That's a bit nerve-wracking. I might have done that. Oh, that must have been an old video. I don't remember that, but I do like Radiohead. My favorite lyrics, gosh, I don't know. That is a tough one. It is a hard one, that. I don't know what my favorite lyrics are. I've never really thought about it, to be honest. It's probably 3 Blind Mice, See How They Run. I don't know, like a kid. That's actually those lyrics are horrible, so it's not that. It's Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Yeah, keep it easy. It's not that. Don't worry. I'm having a hard time thinking of things today. Kathleen asks, do Brits, for the most part, understand Cockney rhyming slang? I don't know that we understand the concept. I don't know that most Brits know the meaning of every rhyme. But for those of you who don't know, it's like when you use a phrase, right? So apples and pears rhymes with stairs. So you might say apples and pears when you mean stairs. It's like a code. It's like rhyming code. And there are just multiple examples of these that I don't think every Brit would know. I'm not even sure everyone who you would consider Cockney would know them all inside out. Maybe they would. I don't know. But it's I mean, it's not something that's in wide use still. I mean, it obviously pops up in that area of London. To what degree it's still being used, I don't know. I'd have to look into that. Sean asks, what British, American, Aussie, or other regionalisms do you have difficulty understanding? I don't know if I have difficulty understanding too many once I come into contact with them, or once I start to be aware that the word exists, because I'm so fascinated by them, and I like to incorporate certain things into my daily use, or weekly use, or monthly use, or however frequent I use my slang. But I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head which ones would be difficult. I mean, I think that again, the first time I'm hearing a phrase, it can be strange. Like some of the ones I've covered recently. I mean, I think about catty corner or kitty corner or all of the different variations on that word. When I first heard it, didn't really know what it meant. I think I thought it meant like directly opposite from the way it was being used, and then I realized that it's sort of diagonal to, right? So I suppose that one caused me a bit of um, confusion. But once it was explained to me, and then when I realized that there are multiple versions of that word, or just different ways of saying it or spelling it, made it even more interesting. How did that word evolve over different regions in the way that it did? And sometimes you can link some of those changes to expansion of the US, the way people move. They take the word with them, and then word of mouth starts dictating a shift in how a word is said or pronounced. It's like the word ornery, a word that really you only find in North America. It's not a word that I encountered in Britain, but I noticed that people were, I think they were saying it differently. So, some people were pronouncing that word differently, but they were also using it with a slightly different definition depending on where in the country they were situated. And I actually did a study into this and formed a map, and that map showed seemingly that once you get out west, that's when a lot of these differences occur with that particular word. And it suggested to me, since the word arose around the time of westward expansion, that it was probably carried west, and that meaning and pronunciation shifted slightly um, because of people traveling, you know. And of course, remember the dictionary at that point of American English was only just sort of being standardized. 1829, I think it was the first Webster dictionary. And so standardization was only just taking hold at this point. So some words were taking on a life of their own depending on where they were. And I find that fascinating too, about American English specifically. Glenn, I like words that are used exactly the opposite way in the US and UK. One of my favorites is to table a discussion. Yes, there are quite a few of those, aren't there? I think off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I know that I've seen them, while doing research into these things. And it is always really fascinating that. So I'm going to return to these questions in just a second, but I also want to just make sure you can all still hear me and we're all still fine, because I stepped away from the screen for a moment there. Yep, England, very true. Heroes, hoagies, subs, grinders. So many phrases for just a sub sandwich in the US. Great. Bye, Sean. And thanks for popping in. And meanings changed back then because people couldn't communicate with those in other regions, says England. And it's interesting, isn't it? If they'd have had the internet back then, I'm not so sure you would have had this variation, like kitty corner, cata corner, catty corner, all of those different ways of spelling and saying that particular word probably wouldn't have taken on a life of their own had the internet existed, just because of you're constantly seeing it written down in people's social media feeds or things like that. And so one spelling would have been standardized right there. Jeff asks, ever hear of Boontling? It's a dialect local to the town of Boonville, California. It was first used by parents who wanted to talk about embarrassing topics around their children. It expanded from there. I love that. And it ties in with an observation I made about American slang, specifically American slang from about the 19th century, where it just seems like uh, the letter O was very prominent for people coining words, especially two O's like that. So you've got boondocks, and then you've got there was this. You look it up. There was a word that was coined here, the word wang doodle, which was a kind of it was a sort of mythical dinosaur type monstery thing, I think, and it was a made up word, but it once again had two O's in a row in it, and I see this again and again. Um, I'd be surprised, and I can't remember off the top of my head if the word bamboozle, for example, didn't have some sort of origination story in the US. It just seems like there's a big thing about double O's. Is um, Kimberly says, wasn't that in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie, Wang Doodle? Was it? Oh, it might have been. Yeah, it could well have been. And and Roald Dahl wrote that. And the funny thing is, Julie Andrews did a children's book about a Wang Doodle as well. And obviously, she's British originally. She might be British American now. I can't remember, but she was born in England. And but I looked it up a while back, and it was traced back to a US origin in sort of, I think it was the mid 1800s, something like that. Cahoots, there's another example from Jameis. I grew up with the word and still laugh when I hear it. And that's another one that was definitely coined in the US. So I don't know what it is about double O's here, but there is certainly was a fascination with it, specifically, as I said, in the 1800s. I wonder why that is. One of my favorite origination stories is Google. Another example. It was originally invented by an 8-year-old boy looking at a number, one with 100 zeros after it. Well, yeah, I suppose when I'm thinking of Google, I am thinking of the company, but the word itself predates that, and may or may not be. Was this American? I don't know if this was American or not. Maybe it was. Maybe you could let me know. I don't know. There's another one, catawampus from Kimberly. Yeah, I love that word, and I've seen a variety of spellings for that too. Yeah, we'd say pear shaped. It's a bit pear shaped, I think. And Jeff says that the blues singer Coco Taylor had a song called Wang Dang Doodle. So I wonder if that came from that as well. Elisa says, it's not strictly about words, but have you looked into Hawaiian English? I have. I mean, I think it's another world, isn't it? To be honest, the spelling conventions of Hawaii are fascinating to me. Fascinating. Yeah, I think that would be a good video all on its own. And in fact, just different regions of the US and the way language is so diverse in certain places. I think of New Orleans when I think of that, just because of the French influence, African American influence, Creole, things like that. I just think I'd love to spend a week just New Orleans, like taking in a lot of the facets of the way language has impacted the city and continues to. The number is spelled Google. Then there's Googleplex, which is Google raised to the Google power. And that's just so many numbers at this point. Angolan says, a great word is zarf. I'm not sure who coined it, but Starbucks couldn't live without them. What's a zarf? I don't know that one. Maybe I should know it. Is it regional? I've not heard it before, I don't think. The Hawaiian language has only 13 letters in its alphabet. That kind of explains a lot. because it when you look at it, you do see the same letters repeated over and over again, from word to word. And I'm probably mispronouncing these, and Pahoho are two forms of lava, which I assume is are Hawaiian words, correct? And obviously lava is quite a problem on the Hawaiian Islands, as we've seen. New Orleans is a wonderful city to visit, says Jameis. I know, I'm very excited to do that. And DJK, discombobulated is a favorite of mine. Mine too. I was quite stunned to discover that was another word coined in the US, because I think it's one of those that I think we've used it in Britain. I can picture us using it. It was discombobulated. Yeah, I could. Yeah, you can picture a British person saying that, and I can almost imagine thinking that it originated in Britain, but apparently not. This was another US etymology. So what have we got? We've got 12 minutes. I'm going to go back to the questions because we had plenty come in. Let's have a look. So Rachel says, I love words as well. Sometimes I'm in the middle of a conversation and the perfect word comes to mind and I open my mouth and say it, and suddenly I freeze and realize I've only seen the word in a book or article and have no clue how to pronounce it. Have you ever had that happen? What word might it have been? The one that comes to mind, and this actually happened in a video, is I was just talking about places that my viewers had said that I should visit in the US. I did 10 of those places. And one of them was Mackinac Island. And the entire segment on that, I was pronouncing it Mackinac, not having a clue how it was actually pronounced. I mean, I never doubted that it was pronounced Mackinac. So I didn't really question myself. And then everybody in the comments was, rightly laughing at me. And it is indeed Mackinac. And so that's the one that will always come to mind, I think, when that happens. And it usually is place names. But when we're talking about non-place name words, gosh, I don't know. I think there's been a few instances of that. Here's one. The word banal. For the longest time, I was pronouncing it banal. Well into my adulthood. And then I heard somebody say it. Because I think the thing is, I'd heard people use the word banal, but I think I thought it was a completely different word. Speaking of which, just the other day, someone I follow on Twitter she was posting about dual citizenship, and she had to correct her spelling below because she'd written DUEL citizenship. And she then corrected herself and said, I actually meant DUAL citizenship. And I'm not kidding. I've been, studying words and things like that for the longest time. It was that day that I realized there are two different words called dual, DUAL and DUEL. I just hadn't noticed my whole life. It was one of those weird ones where it just went over my head the whole time. Even though I'm thinking, in hindsight, both probably always look correct to me. I'd see them individually at different times and wouldn't question it. That looks correct. Yeah, sure. But I've always just in my head, the back of my head, thought there's only one way of spelling it as well. It's a weird thing. But dual is to have a duel with someone, DUEL, and dual to have two of. Dual citizenship is DUAL. Blew my mind. You're probably watching this thinking, what an idiot for missing that. It's like principle and principle, right? This is that difference I learned a while back. And you sometimes see those listicles going around the internet with those sort of commonly confused homophones. And dual is another one, but I've never seen dual on one of those lists. So it never occurred to me until just the other day. Okay, where we got 9 minutes. Oh, still got plenty of questions. Let me go through these then. So John says, when you went to Pennsylvania last year, did you run into any locals that spoke Pennsylvania Deutsch/Dutch? It is dialect of English from German immigrants. There are a ton of words and phrases that you, Lawrence, can have fun with. Terms like "it wonders me," "out on the lights," and "don't eat yourself full." and words like spritzing. You know, I did hear of that word, spritzing. I didn't hear somebody use it, but I'd read up about you know, Pennsylvania Dutch or Deutsch before going there, and that was one of the ones that I came across and loved it. Was that Schnickelfritz, troublemaker? That is brilliant. I love that. So I didn't encounter them necessarily just because, you know, we spoke to people, but we probably didn't speak to a big enough sample size in order to encounter these words. Jeff asks, what are some good examples of semantic drift, i.e., words that gain new meanings over time? I think one of my favorites, or one of the sort of interesting ones from a linguistic point of view, that has happened in recent years is the word literally, where it's sort of gone from meaning, you know, that somebody is implying something that is literal and can now also mean figuratively, confusingly enough. You know, and we think that's weird, and we also get a little bit annoyed by that when people misuse literally to mean figuratively. But in 1,000 years' time, if the meaning by then has switched to figuratively, those people in 1,000 years aren't going to care. They'll look back and think, "Oh, that was cute that they got frustrated about that change," because as is often said, language is ever evolving, and that's it. It's like the word nice used to have quite the opposite meaning that it does today. But today we don't look back at those people 600 years ago who decided to change the meaning as somehow frustrating or annoying. We just adopted their meaning and moved on because that's language. So that's the one that springs to mind, I think, immediately. Kimberly, do you find that there is a difference in how much sarcasm is used in England compared to the US? Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's about the amount of sarcasm necessarily. It might be, but I think it's the manner in which sarcasm is portrayed between the two countries. I think British people are very comfortable just being very stony faced about it. You know, like, sure, that sounds great. You know, and that's accepted by British people as not cold or rude, but he or she is funny. That she's funny. Yeah, that was that delivery. We sort of get it. We're in on the joke. We're in on the sarcasm there. And I think whenever I've kind of been that way to Americans, at first it's they might think I'm being cold or something like that. I'm not. You know, it's just it's just part of who we are. We're born that way in many ways. But well, and Sean, who reacted to Kimberly's comment, said that Brits tend to be more subtle with it, and I think that might be it. There is a bit of a subtlety to our sarcasm. I think a lot of the time with Americans when they're doing sarcasm, there's a bit of a nod and a wink, right? You do know that it's there. It's very apparent. But either way, I think sarcasm is used in both countries, and in an equally effective way. And then Brian says, I was born in Nashville. I've been to Nashville, had a great time. But anyway, my parents are from Indiana. So my regional slang and idioms tend to go back and forth between Southern and Midwestern, sometimes in the same sentence. Do you find the same thing happens in Britain, or is it more of a US me thing? That is a very good question. And I know what you're talking about because that's even occurred to me since living here, because a lot of the Midwestern phrases tend to use Southern influence. It seems like a lot of the things that originated in the South came up to the Midwest. I think actually Catacorner might be one of those, if I remember rightly. But there have been other phrases as well that have done that. And so, yes, you can find yourself doing it. I don't know about Britain, whether that's the case. There's certainly a massive linguistic demarcation between the North and the South, right? There's some very obvious telltale signs that somebody is from one or the other. And whether those two worlds collide or whether there are examples of that, I'd have to go back and look at that. But you can almost imagine there would be. Maybe in the Midlands, Birmingham area, maybe there they sort of take bits of both. I don't know. But it's all very interesting either way. The fact that both countries have these kind of linguistic lines of demarcation where you get to the south and suddenly the word yawl is used a lot, or you know, other things that from different southern dialect to southern dialect are the same across all the dialects, but not the same in the north. You know, I love stuff like that. So those are the questions that came in. I don't think I missed any, and we've got 3 minutes remaining. 3 minutes remaining. So what comments did we have that came in here while I was away? Let's see. Let me just scroll back up here. Jameis, when I say that's nice, it often means it's not nice. And I suppose, you know, that ties in not only to the old meanings of the word nice, but also to American sarcasm. Well, that's nice, you know, or just sarcasm in general, I suppose. Kimberly says, I love Yiddish words. My dad's family is Jewish, so I grew up with them. Yeah, I think I seem to have encountered quite a few Yiddish words in the US, or at least words of Yiddish origin. Trying to think, there was one. Oh, what was it? Well, I don't know. This was never confirmed. I think the word copacetic, which is a marvelous word, originated, they think, in the South, and there's multiple sort of theories as to its origin, and I believe a Yiddish origin was one of the possible contenders. I have to go back to it. It's been about 3 years, but either way, however that word came about, I just love it. I think it's such a good sounding word. And it has a nice meaning too. I mean, doesn't it literally mean nice? Copacetic. I need to start using that more in conversation. All right. This is, let's see. This is, we're getting close now. We have 1 minute remaining. What a schmuck. I love the word schmuck. It's great. And my favorite Yiddish word, says Angeland, is klotz. I love that word. Yeah, I think there's always a kind of there's almost an onomatopoeia, isn't there, to some of these Yiddish words, in that they sound like the action that they're trying to convey. If you're a klutz, you're clumsy. You know, you klutzed something. I love it. Okay, so yeah. Oh, there we go. Schlemiel. I learned that one from Independence Day. I love that one. Diana says nonplussed means both baffled and unperturbed. Yeah, I love the word nonplussed because we use that one a lot in England, I think. And it just, I don't know, it sounds so formal, but it perfectly describes both of its meanings, I think. Kimberly says, have a great weekend, everyone. And those are sentiments I share because we are now on the hour. This has been a wonderful conversation, and it always is when we talk about words. I'm going to get back now to my video and refilm what I missed earlier, and hopefully edit together the next video. But I will see you all next Friday, and stay tuned for the next topic so we can have some more questions come in at that time. All right, until next week, I bid you adieu, which is apparently a good word to use at the start of Wordle. All right, bye, everyone.